Hey Brenda, how are you?
How are you?
Doing great. It's so good to be with you. This is one conversation that I've been looking forward to for a while. We've talked a couple of times. I think our teams met at the National Retail Federation big show in New York back in January. We love what you and your company and your solution are doing for retailers. So let's maybe just start off. Tell us a little bit about you. Got an awesome origin story about kind of your career and how you started this company, and then a little bit about how you're helping retailers.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, I did meet. I went down and toured around NRF to see who was grabbing people in and who was really friendly. So that's how I found you. And it was great. But yeah, so our solution is really focused around counting inventory, doing that everyday counting. One of the things that was really important to us was listening because we had a hardware company and people wanted solutions, but they didn't really have any. So we thought, you know what, we could really take advantage of this by having the expertise of working in retail, working in customer service all of our lives, and then thinking, all right, what could we do to help out in the field? And really, it just was like, we've all done it. We've all had that job where we were counting, or the inventory comes in and you're checking back to a pick list and no one liked it, but I was a little strange. I loved it. I loved when all those boxes showed up and I could cut them open, see what was there, count it. So it really was kind of natural. All of a sudden, I found myself running a tech company with no tech background. But I realized it's just about taking those skills and applying them to a new field. So that's kind of how I got here. And in retail, I think is just always something.
Yeah.
I remember my
And
first
you're
retail
when we
job.
talk about inventory, no, sorry, Brenda, I think there's a bit of a lag in the video. I just interrupted you. Sorry, go ahead.
No problem. I was just gonna say, like, I remember getting my first retail job, and it was working in the mall was my favorite thing. So it's just nice to
Yeah.
kind of be back here.
Yeah, that's amazing. What was that first job?
I worked at a store called the It Store, and we sold like novelty items like New Kids on the Block and gag gifts and Look Who's Over the Hill. So it was like that kind of
Oh
store,
my
but
gosh.
it was great. I loved it.
Love that. That's so great. Yeah. The It Store. That
The
must
It
have
Store.
been a wild place to work.
Oh gosh, yeah. Especially like in high school, I was just 16, and if I'm being honest, it was the reason everybody wanted to
Yeah.
work there is because there was this cute guy behind the counter.
Yeah.
So everybody used to just go there for that. I was like, wow, I get to work here now. It was good though. I loved it. The mall was wonderful. I liked it. It was a good job.
It's
Yeah,
still
just
still
really
a
was.
great place to be. So let's maybe talk a little bit about the problem that you saw that led you to start your company. And let's maybe put it in the context of a story. I'm inside of a warehouse distribution center. I'm inside of a retail store and I'm struggling with what? Kind of walk us through that story.
All right. I will take you to the parking lot of a Tim Hortons and watching somebody come out of there holding a bunch of cups and thinking, where is he going? And finding out he's going to another store
Wow.
because they ran out of cups. And when I think about inventory, that's where I think about, wow, I guess that didn't go well. They've missed somewhere. And then when you start looking for it, you start to see clipboards everywhere you go. And you start to see, serving, extra large cups because that's all there is when you ordered a small. Noticing that you go to order your foods through a drive-through, it's not there. Then you start to notice when you're in a regular clothing store and there's only one person there and they're counting inventory and they're not helping. So it really, I think once though I started to see just within like a supply example with like the cups, I was like, all right, this is more than just a problem with, counting inventory every week for, this purpose or at the end of the year for the accountant. There was things missing every day that needed to be done.
Think about what you just described in that one little vignette. Poor employee productivity. You're degrading the customer experience because instead of someone servicing that customer, they're dealing with inventory issues. Things getting missed in the mix because someone is using a clipboard. This has real impact on the things that really matter in a retail or distribution center context.
It does. And I think today, given the fact that they're, with being able to shop and purchase in more than one area, I know omni-channel can encompass so many things, but from a consumer point of view, I can do this anywhere. And if I walk into a store now and I not getting service because I can see them doing something else, even if that thing is important, it does take away from your experience, and I don't need to be here. I can go somewhere else. I can just stay at home and shop, or I can go to another place. So I think that when you connect customer service to something like inventory, they shouldn't be disconnected. They really should be working together. I mean, one, it's less frustrating for the customer, of course, but what about the employee, who the first thing that they're going to be asked is, why was this person so upset? Or why did we get a bad rating? And we have this thing where we say, good customer service starts on the shelves and it starts in the back room, because they can't do their job if things aren't being managed as far as inventory, supplies. We all take care of making sure the point of sale system works, making sure the floors are clean and things are put away. But, those things really work together. And it's just sometimes not fair to watch an employee having to do things that are taken away with why they're there. Like I said, working at a store in the mall is supposed to be fun. Working in retail is fun because it is about customers. And you just want to stay focused on that as much as you can.
So many of the executives that I talk to in finance in particular, but even in procurement, are looking at what's happening at a store level as it pertains to those supplies or equipment or services, right? The things that are used to internally run the stores. And they're convinced that it's sorted, it's fixed. It's fixed at the store level. It's fixed at the distribution level. I need to go focus on real estate. I need to go focus on marketing. I need to go focus on IT. Stores are running fine. You get into the store or the distribution center, and it's a very different story. Why does that disconnect exist in so many organizations?
The way that I've kind of looked at it is that one of the problems that we found, especially too with a startup in something like inventory, was the person that needed our solution isn't the person who's making the decision to bring it on board. So often that can just make for, okay, so maybe they don't understand what that person needs, and they've always are trying to solve like maybe the bigger problem. And I think that's just naturally what happens when you have decisions being made at the top. They're maybe not, what is it? Take a walk, right? Walk the floor. And when they look at a problem based on numbers, of course, there are things there that they have to do. But if you really want to take a look at how is it affecting it at the bottom, you do have to kind of get in there and ask, what's wrong with us doing it this way? Or trying to find maybe smaller solutions instead of changing everything that you do. Because, that can have the opposite effect. So you have somebody making decisions from the top, wants to fix everything, in these bigger systems, but maybe they're still not solving that small problem, which really make the difference.
When you think about starting small and moving towards the bigger fix and the bigger strategy, how would you encourage someone that's sitting here right now in a store operations role or a supply chain role or a procurement role to take that first step?
I would probably maybe get out of maybe your regular environment that you're in and get on the floor, go visit stores, visit warehouses, visit the person who is, sitting at the back trying to work and do their everyday job. We used to have this thing that my other co-founder, we started to call him the inventory predator, because whenever we were somewhere or he would be out somewhere, he'd be like, all right, team, this is what I just saw. And then he'll start talking to that person about inventory, and they're standoffish at the beginning, but once you ask the right question, they have no trouble telling you what's going wrong and what's frustrating. And I mean, that's an easy thing to do. And everybody is walking around with these computers in their hands. I mean, we've got computers in our hands all the time. And sometimes just finding tools that work there can solve huge problems. We talk about making their lives easier because it's better for retention, which is better for your company. But making it something that's easy for them to use is even more important, because nobody wants to feel like, well, I'm not tech savvy enough for this. Well, we got new computers stuff in, and I'm not really good at this. And that brings me to a story. I was at a large department store, a large chain grocery store and super center, let's say. And I was watching this woman. She was, I would say she was in her late 50s. She was working and she had a phone in her hand. And she was trying, obviously, to use some type of AI tool. And she looked so uncomfortable trying to drag this phone across to capture something. And I'm sure she was thinking to herself, these young kids that do this, or I'm too old to relearn something new. And I thought, why can't she feel good about something that she's doing? Like if you can do a count and produce a really great looking report, that makes you feel like you did something. You didn't just, struggle through the latest thing that corporate sent down for us. And I feel really confident saying that because, I've seen it from both sides. I've worked in the banking industry, and we had a lot of things that came down from ahead that were like, are they not understanding what we do?
So important for the people who are making the programs that get pushed down to start with the bottoms up. And if you hadn't been sitting in that Tim Hortons shopping in the parking lot, you wouldn't have seen the guy carrying the cups, and you would have not thought about the fact that he's wasting his time and it's degrading the customer experience. Getting out is so important. Turnover is huge in retail.
Mm-hmm.
And the cost of finding and hiring a new employee, a new associate, training them, getting them comfortable with their systems is far higher than just being a little bit thoughtful about how you're rolling something out. What are some of the employee retention challenges that get solved with technology?
Again, I would say, simplicity really, I think, is gamified. That's always something they're talking about, right? Making, the solution something, fun to use. Definitely making sure that the functions that your user is going to use are pertinent to them. A lot of times I think the way it kind of can go astray is when a solution does so much, and then when you get that into the hands of the person using it, it's got so many things they don't need that it just kind of falls short. It definitely has to have a short learning curve. It cannot be something that is taking, after hours, how to use it. Complicated systems, you have to sit in front of a computer and learn how to use it. Or you have to bring a special team in so they can onboard a solution. I think some of those things really complicate bringing on technology. And then it just sits there and it doesn't get used. Or they just complain about it. And if you want to keep really good employees, because you know who they are, you want that person who's really great with customers, who will pick up something without being told. Well, those aren't, you don't find those all the time. You sometimes have to nurture and kind of build that, that retail customer to, work the way that is successful in your store. But with technology, keep it simple, make it relevant, and don't try to overcomplicate it with, robust learning curves. I think those would be the three things.
It's really powerful. I've been in technology now in a variety of different industries for a while. And there's been swings over the past several decades from we're going to implement one system that manages, for example, all of store operations and communication. It's going to be in one app and one pane of glass, and it's going to do everything. And then it swings to the other direction that we're going to implement 20 different systems that are the best of breed at what they do. And we're going to stitch them all together in a way that it actually makes sense and it's easy to train. What is that right balance in your mind for if you're a retail executive and you're trying to think about the technology that's going to enable your vision, your processes? What's that right balance?
I think it's more important about finding solutions that can work together as opposed to maybe one solution that does it all. Because I know the idea of being able to do an all-in-one, right? That was kind of where, things started to change when you would have one system that this, you used to have just cameras and you had a phone and you had a computer, right? So we've had this world where they were all separated, and now we have it all on one device, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to find that within your software or your solutions. Probably because, the people who need a solution in an office is different than the person who has, a phone in their hands to do their job. I know it's one of the things that we like to think of that makes us a little bit more unique, where, we've got the solution is kind of this is what we sell first, this is what the solution does for the person who's using it. Plus, here's all this other stuff that goes on. And nowadays, because you can build things to connect, then why not try to find the company that does this really well and that does this really well, but the way we're connected is through the data, right? Through the products, through the reports. I mean, that is really, I think, where things need to go. And especially if you've got a legacy system and the project is too big to replace. Well, if you start by just finding companies that kind of already understand what the problem is and they offer the ability to integrate, or you can start to find those connections, then I think that it's possible to have, solutions that are not all in one, but that here's what this person does best. This company is so good at this. I don't want to give this out. But why should that customer all of a sudden have to, build a mobile app that does something completely different.
And if you pick the right solution providers, that interoperability does not have to be a giant lift for the IT team. It can really plug into existing workflows, existing data and reports, and be a standalone
Yeah.
solution without costing a fortune and doing a 12-month, $500,000 implementation.
Oh, definitely. And I think that, we haven't really talked about how it affects the tech side when you're trying to even build in-house applications that maybe you've done, and now you're thinking maybe we shouldn't. But, those are expensive. Somebody else may be able to do it better. And then all of a sudden your tech team can work on integrations. They can work on, focusing on making sure that people are using the products better. They can work on trying to find other solutions. And I think that's a big change, but it's kind of the reality. And the last few shows that I've done, it's really been a lot more about partnerships and integrations. I mean, it's kind of just the way things are starting to move. So you kind of have to adapt to that. But I think that can help the people at the top, and it can help the people who are working, in the retail stores, in the warehouses, in the supply closets, wherever they are. I think that makes it almost easier.
Totally agree. Let's talk a little bit about your solution. I want to ground on a definition first. When you say inventory, it means a lot of different things. It can be inventory that's goods for resale, so merchandise. It also mean the non-merch stuff, right? Procurement people call it indirect spend, right? The things that are used internally to run your stores or your distribution centers or warehouses. Where do you play in that world, and why? Where is the greatest need?
So we always say that we don't care what you count or how often you count, because our system allows you to count whatever works for your business. But we started to, we peeled that back in order to kind of grow. Its supplies became really, really apparent that the supplies that you need to run your business are the ones that don't seem to be managed as well as they can. The warehouses, everybody knows what works in a warehouse, the safety, what kind of shelving units you should have, where it should be. However, when it comes down to what do I have and where is it? What are we really doing to make that more visible? If you can walk around and have your phone and know what your on-hand totals are. I mean, as a manager, now I'm not sitting at my desk. I'm walking the floor. I'm wondering, why did so-and-so just pick these products when the work order said this? So now all of a sudden, it's not just a tool that sits at your desk. It's let's go out. I don't need a clipboard. I have my phone in my hand, and let's go and see where our problems are. And then I think that really helps people feel empowered by a solution instead. So for us, we always like to think, all right, you have a clipboard, you should need a clipboard this day and age. There's no reason to have a clipboard with products on it going around counting. Or sticky notes, that was a big one. When we got into supply management and seeing that the warehouse manager had more sticky notes on his computer than anything else, we're like, all right, this isn't good. Those products are thousands of dollars and you don't know how many you have. So inventory for us isn't about like an inventory management system. And I have this disagreement for a long time with my tech team, but we have all the components of an inventory management system. We do all this. And I'm like, not all of it. We don't ship. We're not a shipping solution. We don't have vendor information. We are data collecting what you have on your shelf. Because let's face it, every system tells you what you should have, but the only way you know what you have is if you have a record of you standing in front of that shelf and counting it and knowing what was there. So for us, that's our little piece, is how can we just be the tool that you need in the field and allow everyone else to do what they do best. And that's why we built it, to be able to connect very simply, because we want to be part of it. You don't have to switch anything that you're doing to use our solution. You can use it with whatever you're using.
You've built something for the people that are doing the job, not just something for the people that are going to buy the solution. That's going to win every time. You talked a little bit about sticky notes on monitors in, a distribution center's manager's computer. And we see those same sticky notes really a little bit further downstream from the inventory management, in some cases upstream at the ordering process. One of the things that Verus does really well, at least our customers tell us that Verus does very well, is to create a streamlined, very easy way for the people who are out in the field or out in a warehouse or out in a store to buy things very easily. And the challenge that we hear consistently is, great, you solved this sticky note problem for ordering, but you haven't eliminated the sticky notes because we're still using them when we're counting. We don't have to use paper to order, but we're still using paper to count. And I think those things can really fit together very beautifully.
Yeah, I think so too. It's one of the reasons I got it right away when I met Brian at your booth was, okay, I get this. Or Steven. You have to correct that on.
Yeah.
I got his name backwards. And that's exactly what I saw. I was like, all right, this makes sense. And I had really just spoken with actually somebody who works at a hospital who was telling me that same problem they had. Is that his problem was people just order whatever they want, and we have a system but nobody uses it because they don't have like that one place for everyone to order. And we aren't in that business, but what we can give you is a really nice reorder report or Excel file that otherwise your employees aren't going to sit down and make, but they just did it with their phone. And here's the right information. I'm not going to overorder, or I'm not waiting for somebody how long to see when this order is going to come through. I thought that was really interesting too, being able to see, why does this shelf have a clip on it that says back ordered? I should be able just to scan a barcode and see where this order is. I saw that when I was in the hospital because I broke my hand a couple of weeks ago, and as I was waiting, I was like, oh, I could totally inventory this room while I'm in here. And that was one of the things that I saw, is that they had this bin of like little laminated tags that said back ordered, don't use this, needs to be ordered. And I'm like, this does not seem efficient, especially in like a hospital where supplies, just need to be there. So it really, it made me think totally differently about supplies when I went to your booth. And that I thought was really great.
I appreciate that. Your story about being in the hospital reminds me of the complaining that I hear from my wife and my kids right now, because every retail store I walk into, I'm pulling the assistant manager aside and asking them, how do you do inventory? How do you order? Can I just buy a pair of jeans and leave? Do you have to embarrass me?
Yeah, but that's our job.
It's our job. It's our job. That's how you become customer obsessed, is talking to your customer. And I think that really ties into some of the challenges that exist in a lot of companies, but particularly in retail, that are so decentralized. You've got corporate up here, 2,000 miles away from half the stores. Those people in those days don't communicate all the time. There's a disconnection from the reality at corporate, and there's an underappreciation of the store for what corporate needs to accomplish.
Yes, there is. And I'm sure it's a very tough, thing to manage. Especially given the challenges that are always being faced with retail, whether it's going to be a good year or a bad year, whether we're in a recession or we're not. I mean, there's so many things that take place from a corporate level that decide things on the floor. But we all know that you want customers, you need to have sales, you need to have inventory stock, you need to have employees that can do their jobs. And you want them to do their jobs well. And all we're saying is, why not invest in a tool that will help them with their everyday jobs? And that is simple to use and isn't going to be, really difficult to onboard. Like I said, everyone's on their phones. People have these intelligent devices in their hands. And sometimes a simple solution can really just satisfy a lot of different people along that chain, from retail all the way up to, head office.
I'm getting really tired of talking to procurement and finance people, and it's in every industry, but it's especially in finance right now, saying, if only the stores would follow our rules, or we've got to create this new program and they've got to follow it. And I think that there is a disconnect in bringing in the individuals in the field, treating them with dignity, giving them agency, giving them autonomy within guardrails. Those individuals want the company to succeed. They don't want bankruptcy. They don't want stores shutting down. They don't want fewer shifts. And if we could just get to a point where corporate would view the people in the field as advocates and really enablers of that vision, we would have far fewer stores shutting down in the United States right now.
Yeah, I think so. Because I know as a shopper, if I can go somewhere else, I'll go. If I am not happy with who I'm dealing with, otherwise, why go out? We go out of our house to experience and to be with people and to have those interactions. And you'll always go back to the place where you remember you had great service, but your list is sometimes bigger now because you just see how it's sad. It's not just sad because people maybe aren't shopping in retail stores, but it's sad when, that employee maybe isn't as happy as they could be with their, job in the mall. And that's a big difference in how, it's changed for society. Like, for sure, we only had mall shopping. There was nothing else you could do. You hung out there on Saturdays. You did so much. But as these other channels open up and we watch, retail stores and malls kind of fade away, I don't think it's impossible to bring back, good employees who enjoy those jobs and would rather work in retail maybe than where they are by, giving them the sense that you care what they do and that you want to kind of, keep them and make their jobs happy. Because it's tough. A lot of them are part-time employees and it's sometimes hard, you think, putting in that effort to make them happy. But what does it really take? To just say, maybe I'll look and see why it's not working. If procurement comes up with a new system, it doesn't make sense. Why aren't they following this? And going and taking a look. I think that's, really one of the things that we miss out with maybe everyone staying home more and realizing they can work from home, but all of a sudden you miss those interactions with people that kind of teach you, oh yeah, maybe this is a little too much. I don't know what we were thinking. I don't know. I think that sometimes about HR apps because I know there was so many of them and I'm like, how much do you think this employee is going to use this HR app? Right. And yet they're very popular, but it's not really helping them do their jobs. It's helping you and that's good, but let's give them something they can use. That's our motto. We just, we built it for people who count, and that's all we're trying to do.
If you treat part-time employees like part-time employees, they will act like part-time employees and care very little about the future of the company. If you treat an employee like a partner, if you empower them, if you tell them that the big hill that we've got to climb to get this company profitable or sales up or whatever it is, they will pull in that same direction. But I think too often people in the stores and the distribution centers are just viewed as a cost that needs to be managed and optimized as a part of the enablers of what's happening. I think it's high time in the solutions that we build that they're aligned to the jobs that need to be done and enable and empower those. You're going to have better employee retention. You're going to have better employee satisfaction. You're going to have happy customers as a part. That's going to impact the outcome of that company. It's going to increase sales. You're going to have partners in cost savings. I get it. Real estate's a huge cost. The increased cost of goods sold is going up with inflation and tariffs. But there is a lot of money to be saved in indirect supplies, in equipment, in services at a store and distribution center level. And when you add those up, when you stack those up, that's going to equal fewer stores closed, more runway financially for you as a company.
Yeah, I think so too. I really do. You had said something in there that was really interesting about closing, about the costs going up and stores becoming warehouses and that. Because I found it with a company we're working with. I mean, I like the idea that you can now ship out from stores. But if I'm going into a retail store in a mall, I want to be with customers. You become you work in a store in the mall so that way you can interact with people. And I know that there's this drive to ship out within the stores. And it works and it's great from someone at home. But again, it's just one of those things where you're taking people off of the floor and you're putting them in behind where now they're not with customers. And I just think it's nice to find a way to balance those out. So that way, maybe instead of concentrating on, what your training is, so you can train less and you might find you have better customer service training. I watched my daughter start her first job and it was great. She had an app and she could talk to everybody within their group and she showed me what she was learning, but there was nothing in there about customer service. And,
wow.
When I worked for Canada Trust, that was kind of like what I worked before I stayed home as a mother. Our training in customer service is really why I feel I'm a good leader at what I do, because we learned how to help customers. And I think that gets lost sometimes. And it's because they're teaching them maybe the wrong things. So maybe you're trying to implement too many systems that your employees are like, I just wanted to help people, right? I just wanted to have fun in a store. But I think that with technology and the right tools in someone's hand, I think you can pull off both. Bring back the joy of going shopping in a store, and also provide some really great jobs to people who are looking to be in the mall and, have that job where they get to go to the mall every day.
Brenda, what a great place to leave it. That is inspiring, and that is what we need. Thank you. It's been great to talk with you. I really appreciate your time. I love not just what you're building, it's a great solution, but really the philosophy and that customer centric view of how you're building it. So keep going.
Awesome. Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
This was great. All right.